Big welcome. Welcome and hello to from me to today's virtual Stockholm Tableau user group Meetup. I'm very excited to see so many of you join today's session, and thank you for those of you who put some messages in the chat. I haven't used WebEx in quite a while, so maybe we didn't have the option to send a message to everyone in the team, but I can see we got some guests from Mexico as well. I can see we got some users here in Stockholm. I'm very glad to hear that as well. So thank you for sharing whereabouts you are based. I hope you're keeping well and safe in these quite unusual times. It's a shame that we weren't able to meet in person, but hopefully being able to join from the comfort of your home office makes up for it a little bit. With this session being virtual, as we've already seen, we have some guests who are not based in Stockholm. But again, the user group is all about sharing, and I think it's great that you guys can join us, and I hope you find it informative. So again, a warm welcome to you too. A couple of things about me. Just to introduce myself. So I currently work as a business intelligence developer at Daniel Wellington here in Stockholm. I moved in February, so it's a month now. I used to live in Nottingham in the UK, but originally I'm from Bulgaria, so I've toured around Europe a little bit. I've used Tableau, obviously focusing on Tableau Desktop. I think this is kind of where we all tend to start from since January 2015 in kind of various variables in the private and public sector in the UK. Before moving to Sweden, I also used to co-lead the Midlands Tableau user group back in the UK. So kind of we used to connect a couple of cities, Derby, Nottingham, and Leicester. So naturally, the first thing I did before coming here to Stockholm, or after, having made a decision to move here, is find out, do we have a user group and how we can get involved, how we can help. So here is me. And I don't speak Swedish. I had my first lesson in Swedish last week. So at least for now, I know how to say "Ja talar inte svenska." And for those obviously who don't speak Swedish, it is we are saying I don't speak Swedish in Swedish. Right, so about today's session, it is going to be recorded and it will be available for you to see afterwards on Tablew's YouTube channel, probably maybe after a couple of days or next week at some point. I hope you have now by now found the chat box, and there is also a Q&A box in WebEx. I think you may need to kind of where you can find at the bottom of the screen where you can see the triple dots. I think there you can find the Q&A box if it's not already kind of straight available to you in your bottom toolbar. What I suggest is kind of use the Q&A box because it will just help us use it for any questions because it will just help us monitor then and kind of keep a track on having answered all of them. Yeah, please use this one. Your co-host for today is Geraldine from Tableau. She supports the local user communities around EMEA, and I have to be completely honest with you guys, I have never done a virtual user group event before. So as soon as I said I really want to run one, she kind of very kindly offered to help me with the technical side. So she set up the WebEx for me, and she's been helping with that. So thank you, Caroline, for joining me as well and helping with this. After this session, I will make the slides available and any other material that we'll be willing to share on the community page on this link. And of course, we'll also send a follow-up email where you can, with the link again to the community page where you can find the resources. Today's agenda, we will start with a very short section on what has been going on lately in Tableau. It's not about features, it's about news, events, announcements, anything I thought that may be of interest to you guys. After this, we will move straight on to Geraldine Zanolli, also known as Gigi. She will tell us about what you can do with Tableau APIs, developer platform, what are some of the popular use cases, how you can get involved with it. So basically like a full 360 on kind of all the things you can do kind of with APIs. One thing to mention is Geraldine will have to leave us shortly after her talk, so If you do have some questions, I would recommend putting them in the Q&A box during the session, so straight afterwards you can try and go over them and we can answer them. Of course, you'll be able to reach out to her and the developer team afterwards if you just also have a question afterwards. But yep, just to let you know that she will have to leave shortly after the presentation. Straight after Gigi, I'll show you some tips on how to not get frustrated with Tableau's layout containers. So I used to kind of be quite frustrated at the beginning, especially when I first started using them. So it's a bit of a back to the basics sort of tool. I do hope you find it helpful though. And today's we will finish with a short interactive session where we can go through some ideas about the next steps and the upcoming events. So what has been going on in Tableau? What's good? Starting with e-learning 90 days, free 90 days of free learning. So currently Tableau offering free access to the e-learning platform for anyone. So this offer applies to existing customers, new customers, prospective customers. So basically for everyone. All you need to do is just go to the e-learning page, which you can see the link here, and just use the 2020 e-learning code. The 90 days start from the day you activate your access. So this kind of saves you, it saves you a fair bit of cash, I would say. Usually to have access to the e-learning platform, it's $120 US dollars per year, greater than 60 for viewers, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, having 3 months free, I think it's great. And I personally started accessing those courses a few weeks ago. I found the content to be very well structured and quite relevant to the path or the role you kind of choose. So I would definitely recommend starting with it. Speaking of learning, the roles or the paths I mentioned, here you can see a diagram of kind of different roles that sort of identify their part of their blueprint framework. And if you're not sure kind of which role or which path you need to follow, they also launched this community guide, which I found also quite interesting. So what you do is basically, it's like a quiz. So you start by answering some questions about how you use Tableau in your day-to-day role and organization. And at the end, you're immediately given a guided list of 2 relevant paths that, according to Tableau, are best for you to start with regards to your learning. So it's pretty good, and it gives you some resources on how you can get started, how you can get engaged with the community, how to stay tuned with using updates. So it's something that also I think you'll find useful. If anyone is thinking of getting certified, this is maybe something you'll be interested in. This is particularly for the Tableau, the first out of the 3 Tableau desktop specialist certifications. Currently, there's a 50% discount. It's automatically applied, and from what I can see, the offer is valid until 30th of June 2020. But after, if you purchase it before then it says that you have 6 months for the purchase date to schedule and take the exam, so you don't have to take the exam before 30th of June. And you don't have to go to an event. I know some friends who have actually taken the certification, and you can actually take it from your home. You just need to have a laptop available. Moving on to events. So if any of you are planning to go to a Tableau conference in Europe, in London this summer, I know Tableau recently made an announcement that the event has been postponed for late Q4. So I mean, I think it's quite understandable. One thing I think that is quite useful is they have, it seems like they will be having a free event on the 30th of June when kind of roughly when the conference was supposed to take place. I don't know any more details about it, but if I find any more details, I will let you know. But I'll say go check out the page because it will be free for everyone. So it will be something like a virtual conference, perhaps. And lastly, from the events section, with sort of the COVID-19 situation, many of the user groups have gone virtual. So you may wish to check out the Tableau have a dedicated splash page where you can see all the virtual Tableau community events. Obviously, some user groups are geographically defined the way we are here, but they are other than thematic, like healthcare user group, higher education user group, finance. There's even a football one I noticed a few days ago. So just take advantage of the fact that everything is happening at home. or you can join from home. Recordings are also available on Tableau's YouTube channel, so even if you don't join them live, you can still watch them afterwards. And one event in particular I definitely recommend is a Data Fan Community Jam. So they have their own, they also have their own web page, but what they do is like they have, it's week 5, I believe, at the moment, and every Friday they do 2-hour sessions where they have speakers from all over the world with all the different levels of experience, and they cover so many topics kind of related to Tableau. The 2 hours, I think, at the moment this week is going to be 3 till 5 or 4 till 6 our time. But I've seen them being between 1 and 2, between 1 and 3, 2 and 4 o'clock. So you just need to kind of go and check out every week when the event is going to be run. So this was the last kind of news and events I kind of thought would be useful. If you think there's something else going on in the region, show it and run, add it in the chat, and then again we can share it with the community. So next we have Gigi. Just to give you a very quick introduction, Gigi is a developer advocate at Tableau, and she's joining us all the way from Seattle. So at the moment it's just gone past 7 o'clock in the morning. Her mission, according to her profile, is to enable Tableau's developers to be successful in their usage of APIs and all the developer tools available to them. I met Gigi last year at one of the Tableau's DataDev hackathons in London, where I kind of built my first and only so far Tableau extension. APIs is not one of my strengths, but one of my main takeaways from that day was how much more there is to Tableau, and how much there is to the out-of-the-box solutions. So with the right skills, I think we can take Tableau to not the next, like quite a few levels beyond. You can follow Gigi on Twitter, and you can also contact the developer program team on an email that she's going to pass you later on. But without further ado, I will just pass you on straight to Gigi.
Hi everyone, thank you Elena for the introduction. Thank you also for having me. I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. So popular use cases from DataDev to Tableau customers. I'm Geraldine Zanolli, aka Gigi. I'm a developer advocate. I've been at Tableau for 4 years now. And before I was working in pre-sales in London, moved to Seattle almost a year ago. And my mission, how Elena states, is to enable developers to use our APIs. So what are we going to learn during this next 50 minutes together? First, we are going to understand the developer platform APIs tools and use cases, when to use what. I think when you start with Tableau, you might be thinking, oh, so many APIs out there, and each API is answering a specific use case. And you have to understand, even if you're not technical, you might be like, oh, I want to connect to my data, but I don't see a native connector. Which API do I use? Things like that you can think on the day-to-day basics that will help you with this presentation to find the right tools to your use case. And even if you might not be the developer, you might be, okay, I know which API to use, and I can look at the documentation or direct my developer to the right APIs. But if you want to get to know more about APIs and you want to learn more about our developer platform, I'm also going to give you the tools to get started tomorrow. And who doesn't want some swag? Like this baby, like he wants the swags, DataDev swags, so bad. So if you want to win some swag, and I have a swag, DataDev swag pack, pay attention to the next 50 minutes, because at the end, I have a small quiz for you, and it's related to the content of this presentation. So listen carefully. We have 3 swag pack available for you to win today. So let's start by the beginning, the developer platform. So what the developer platforms enable you to do? Automation and integration. If you want to automate tasks or create workflow with a third-party tool and manage Tableau content. extensibility. If you want to do even more with your dashboards, you want to extend the capabilities of your dashboard. Only the sky is your limit. Advanced analytic. If you want to do more with calculate fields, you want to integrate with your Python script or your MATLAB script. Embedding. If you want to have Tableau inside your application or your website. Data connectivity. If you want to get data into Tableau via custom connector or extract. So the way I usually start this presentation is by the journey of someone that is starting with Tableau, that use Tableau in the day-to-day job. What do you do first? I'm sure it is connecting to data. You need to get data to be able to visualize them. Three options, three members in the connectivity family: the Web Data Connector, Hyper API, and Connector SDK. The Web Data Connector connects to web-based data sources that are not currently supported by Tableau. So think about APIs, for example. Hyper API is like the Swiss knife of connectivity. Connect to any data sources. And you can create custom script using this Hyper API to pull your data directly in a Tableau extract. Last but not least, Connector SDK allow users to build their own custom native-looking feeling connectors and add them directly in Tableau as any other native connector that you can see in Tableau when you connect to data sources. So how do I pick between these three options? Well, first, think about what you want to connect to. Are you going to connect to web-based data sources only? You might want data, you might want to use the Web Data Connector. Or you want to connect to be able to connect to any data sources or API, and Hyper API. Or your database has an ODBC or JDBC driver, then Connector SDK might be a good option here. Next, coding skills. I'm only proficient in JavaScript. Which one of these three should I pick? Then you might be going for the Web Data Connector or the Connector SDK. Or if Python is more your jam, then use the Hyper API and use Python or C++ or Java if you want to. Now I have my data in Tableau. But next step is, how about the refresh? How do I refresh my data source? The Web Data Connector allows to automate refreshes on Tableau server and Tableau online as any other extracts. Hyper API require your code to be run to refresh. Every time you want new data, you have to run your script again. And the Connector SDK is easy peasy, works as any supported connectors. Now you have your connector set, you learn JavaScript or you learn another coding skills, but your colleagues next to you want to use your connector when you use your work. So how do you share this connector, your work? So with the Web Data Connector, it's easy to share a Web Data Connector. You can just share a URL to the person that wants to use it. Hyper API is more tricky as it requires dependency depending on which data sources you are connecting. And the Connector SDK, once you have your work all done, you can package it as a TACO file. And you can share this TACO file to anyone that wants to connect to use your connector. I tell you, it's the first time you're going to want to share a TACO with someone else. So I want to highlight some of the work of DataDev, so our people that use our APIs. What do they build? For example, Hyper API can help developer to create a publish to data extract feature. Connector SDK allow developers enable them to connect to one database provider and develop their own native looking connector. And the Web Data Connector enables organizations to easily pull data directly in Tableau and create visualization. Anyone using the Web Data Connector could use it to pull the data and build visualization. Now you have your data, you're all set. You're starting to build your dashboard and you're like, I would like to do more. I would like to write back to my data source. I would like to do a custom graph visualization. Then extensibility is your answer. Two options again here, the JavaScript API and Extension API. The JavaScript API lets you display and interact two-way communication with visualization in your application. And the Extension API enables Tableau user to integrate and interact with data from other applications directly into Tableau. Here, again, what are the differences? I think the first one to think about when you're like picking and say, okay, should I use JavaScript API or the Extension API? Think about what is your first application? What is your main application? Is your main application Tableau and you just want to bring another application inside Tableau? Then you should use Extension API. In the other hand, the JavaScript API is if your main application is your website, your portal, and you just want to bring Tableau values and dashboard visualization inside your application or your portal. For the JavaScript API, in terms of code, you need a web page to be able to embed Tableau to use it. When Extension API can be used in desktop, Tableau server, and Tableau online. And also, I should update it. Tableau public. Did you see that we released free extensions for users, Tableau public user to use directly in public? The JavaScript API is custom built for each embedding scenario. You're not sharing the same portal or the same application for all the people using the JavaScript API. But the Extension API, you can build an extension that can be reusable and generic to use to different dashboards and different cases. But both required JavaScript as a coding skill. So on the left side is an example using the JavaScript API. We have agency portal, and we can see we have a viz embedded in this portal. On the right is an extension API, an extension running inside a dashboard. So this is the radar chart that we can see in the bottom right, and it's challenging to do it in Tableau. With extension, with one drag and drop, you can configure and have a radar chart running in Tableau. And what it's showing as well is the two-way interactivity between the dashboard itself and the extensions. Can be also extension to the dashboard. That's not the case here, but you could have both here. An example of what DataDev built. InfoTopics is one of the Tableau partner and developed 8 extensions available already for you to use on the gallery. Show Me More allow you to add beautiful visualization types that are not available by default in the Show Me menu in Tableau. We also have Picture This that allow you to create dynamic images tables. So if you have an image URL in your data and you want to display this in a Tableau dashboards, you can use the extension. It's really handy if you are working in retail, for example, and you want to see your product and having a picture next to the product ID, for example, a product name. Now you have your dashboard. You are ready to go to run the world, but you want to automate certain tasks and you have your Tableau server, you have everything running with your dashboard on, but you want to automate and manage Tableau. So is why we have automation and integrations for APIs. First one, I think the most famous one, REST API. Allow programmatic access to work with your content, users, and site on Tableau server or online. Talk about the 3 Ps, provisioning, permission, and publishing. But we have various use cases for the REST API. Let me give you an example. You have a Tableau server admin. Any Tableau server admin on the call? You can say in the chat. I can see the answer. If you're a Tableau server admin and you have to add every users, every new employees in your organization, you have to add them to Tableau server, give them a license and set them up with Tableau server or Tableau online. Do you have to add them manually every time someone is joining your company? Be like, hey, I have 2 users today. Can you set it up? I have 10 users. Okay, start to be a lot. I have 100 employees starting today. Oh, that's a lot of users to set up on Tableau server. Why not using REST API to automate the creation of new users? Tableau Service Management. I think there's a switch between the slide, but you will understand it on the next slide. TSM gives you server admin command line to configure and maintain Tableau server. Let's go back to the Tableau server admin. One of his tasks is to do a backup of Tableau server every week to be sure that, or every day, to be sure that in case something is going wrong with Tableau server, he has a backup and he can set it up and this server can be back running. Instead of doing it manually and do a backup of your production environment every week or every day, you might want to use TSM to do and automate the backup of your production environment. So yeah, it was why I was saying it's like, I think I switched some slide. But here, the Tableau Server Client, TSC. If you remember the REST API slide, you might think it's really similar to the REST API. And you got it right. The TSC is a Python library for the Tableau Server REST API. So same use cases than the REST API, and it's just if you are a Python user, instead you can use TSC directly to access Tableau content. Document API programmatically modify Tableau files. We used to have a lot of use cases for the document API, but we added more and more APIs to the Tableau developer platform. So one of the main use cases for document API is when you want to switch the data source in your Tableau workbook. It can be example, you have different work data sources, but the same table schema. But you don't want to go manually and replace, and you want to have some dashboards, but you don't want to go manually replace the data source in every dashboard. But you want to automate that. So you have the same dashboard with 4 or 5, depending on how many dashboards, data source, how many data source you have, and you can have that set and switch the data source for you, so you don't have to do it again. Webbooks. Who here is excited about Webbooks? I love Webbooks. Like, it's been released last year. I was so excited when we finally released it to the public. Allow other services to respond to Tableau events that happen on Tableau server or Tableau online. If we go back to the Tableau server admin, I don't know, I didn't see any answer if we have any Tableau server admin on the call, but let's imagine again on like in the work of a Tableau server admin. Tableau server admin, when an extract is failing, is receiving an email. But some Tableau server admin don't use emails. They use Slack. Like at Tableau, we use Slack to collaborate with our team. So they don't use email, so they don't see the notification. They wish that we could send a Slack messages when an extract is failing. We can do it with Webbooks and set up Webbooks to send them a notification every time an extract is failing. I added this drawing because I think it makes more sense when we draw. So you have Tableau. That's an explanation of Webbooks. You have Tableau, and you have a third party. In the use case example, that can be Slack. And let's imagine a Slack. And you want to set up a first party and say, hey, Tableau, tell me when things happen on Tableau server. Like user creation, like let's forget about the data. So say every time we have a new user on Tableau, I want to get notified, please, Tableau. Tableau said, okay, yeah, sure, I will notify you. I can do that. And then the event happen. It can be we say added user added or workbook updated, extract selling. We have a list of different events you can monitor using workbooks. And the event happened. It's like user have been added. And so Tableau, what does he do? Say, hey, yes, this user has been added to your server. That's the ID of your user. And then the third party, depending on how you set it up, responds as needed to the event that is happening. Here can be a Slack notification if we take back the Slack notification example. And you say, okay, I'm Slack and I'm going to notify the Tableau server admin that a user has been added to Tableau Online. The metadata API, I think, Elena, I think you used it recently for one of your use cases.
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay. So Elena, she did extension API and metadata API. I think maybe you can tell me a little bit more about your use case, but let's go on now. So the metadata API is our first GraphQL API. We look to query different resources on Tableau server or online and how they relate to each other. What do we have on Tableau server now or Tableau online when you think about it? We have workbooks, we have data sources, we have prep flow now as well. And they are all related to each other. Think about a messy family. It's like you have your brother, your sister, your uncle, your grandmother, your cousins, your far cousins. And that's the same thing with Tableau server, with flow and workbook. They are all related to each other. But you might want to understand why have a relationship between these different assets, the same way you want to understand your family tree. And especially if you have a Tableau server admin, you don't want to delete a data source, for example, and realize after deleting it that you are losing 4, 5, 10 workbooks here. That's an example. You could query the data source you want to delete to understand how assets are related to each other. I think here's a good time to have a demo of a metadata API. I picked 2 demos because we have only 50 minutes, and I think it's the APIs that are most recent and the not well known in the community. So I have my Tableau server here. I'm going to show you in a minute. And I already see I'm on Tableau Online, and I'm using GraphQL as an interface to do GraphQL queries. And here, my first query here is to understand all the workbooks that I have on Tableau Online and have a link to any data sources, and do I have any prep flow running on this Tableau Online? And I can directly query that, and it's return me a JSON file with all the different published data sources and workbooks I have. You can also look at external assets. How many database, what are the name, what are the tables? Really, that's all the different database. I have a lot of Excel file, Hyper. And what have the relationship? So I have a worksheet. I want to have a data source field and the upstream table as well. So now I can see the upstream tables and the data source fields used. I think here, if you want to, it's really easy to get started with the metadata API. So if you use the GraphQL interface, so you just have to add metadata/GraphQL at the end of your Tableau Online instance, and you can get started, and it's autocomplete. So it's really easy, and you have a search on the right side. So if you want, for example, I'm going to say calculate field. You can have, and like you have a documentation on the right side. So I want to have all my workbooks, and I want to see all the calculate field. So maybe, I think it's just calculate field. You see, it's autocomplete, so I know I'm not making any mistakes. So I want the name of all the calculate field and the formula. And you see, now I have all my calculated fields and all the formula for all my calculated fields. Here, for example, sales above our target, I can see that I just did a if statement to check my sales. So what DataDev built using the automation and integrations tools? The Information Lab, Jonathan built a script using TSC to make Tableau server housekeeping easy. If you are running a Tableau server, you might have a lot of logs and you want to clean it up so it doesn't take much space, you can use Jonathan's script and use TSC to build the script. REST API has been used by Interworks to build their embedded portal product. And the metadata API and REST API has been used by Alation. I'm not Alation. I may have practiced Alation practice before how to say it, but it's written on the screen, so I don't have. And Colibra used the REST API and the metadata API to integrate Tableau with their product. So now, how to embed? We mentioned it quickly in the at the beginning, how to embed Tableau. So you can use the JavaScript API to embed a dashboard directly into your application. And you can see here the two-way communications. And the REST API also been used to generate the thumbnails of images here. So each user logging into your portal can see what they have the permission for. We also have mobile app Bootstrap that allow you to build mobile app with Tableau embedded in it. And as data embedded iframe, if you already use as data, it will allow you to ask questions on your own data. You can embed as data inside your portal. So end users, they connect to your portal and they can ask directly to your data their own questions if they don't have the answer. Last category, advanced analytics. If you want to do more with calculated fields and run your Python or your Python script. Here is an example. If you want to run a Python script, you can use calculate field in Tableau and put the script with the script and the data you want to send in the calculate field. Then, so what's going to happen, it's going to pass the Python script and the data to the TabPy server. So you need to set up a TabPy server, and the TabPy server is going to send the output data and build, and you can use this data to build interactive visors in Tableau. Same, really similar setup with R. Instead of having a TabPy server, you're going to use an RServe. You'll have to set up RServe. But same, you pass the R script and the data into R, and you're using a calculated field. Again, similar setup with MATLAB. Instead, you're going to use a MATLAB server. Last but not least, the Analytics Extension API. That's one of the newest API we have. Right, it's been released at the beginning of this year, a few months ago, and allow you to do to use any programming language inside of a calculated field or connect to any web-based server. What it's going to do is going to pass the script and the data to the analytic extension. And analytic extension is going to process your data in your script, can set it up, and they send out the output data to Tableau. Quick demo here, because we are short on time. I don't know about you. My first language is French, and I thought that you should have the same. It's like all my dashboard are in English. But what about Swedish? I want to have my dashboard in Swedish. You want to have your dashboard in Swedish the same way I want to have my dashboard in French sometimes. It's just handy. So here is an example of a dashboard running with tweets in English. And I want to have the tweet in Swedish for you. So here I use the new Analytic Extension API to translate the tweets. So I'm going to send the tweets in English. I want to translate, so I have my script running, and I just want to have to translate it. And here I want from English to Swedish. So I can drag and drop my calculate field, and poof, I have my tweet in Swedish. Can anyone confirm that it makes sense? Because I don't speak Swedish, but I checked. It should be fine. It should be the right. And I set up the same way that you set up your rserv or Python's our Python tab.py is managed in here. Is pointing to my script that is analytics API samples. I can send you the link at the end if you want. Slovak. Okay. Okay, we got the wrong one, but I wanted Swedish at the, sorry, wrong language. But I can just quickly say, okay, I want French. Sorry about that. I can confirm that it's actually French. Yeah, that's French. I can confirm and it's not. So quick, we already have partner using the new analytic extension API. Opal use it to have real-time prediction in Tableau. And Boston Consulting Group, PCG, use tab.py to share optimization model with custom fraud interactive dashboards. Oh, but I forgot an timing slide. We are doing the quiz now. So the first one in the chat, or we're going to have the right answer, is going to win a swag pack. I would like to automate my extract refresh task. Which API does Mr. Robot need to use to do that? Okay, Anders, you got it right. It's automate and it's going to use the REST API. Next one, I need to receive a text message when an extract is failing on Tableau server. Which API? Use the chat so I can see it on the side. Oh, I think we got a right answer from Mo, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name right, but you want to receive an spelling on Tableau server. That's the keywords, and it's Webbooks. I will check the chat at the end and to be sure that the timing is right. And next one, I want my Tableau user to connect to my in-house database like any native connector. Which API does Mr. Plugin need to use? A native connector. SDK? What SDK? Connector SDK. Yes, we have a winner. So I will ask you to send me your address. We can set that later. Thank you and congratulations to all the winners. Oh, no, sorry, we have another one. So I want to email user that created bad name fields on Tableau online, like calculation 1, test 3, test 4. Which API do I need to use to be able to? Metadata API. Graphic. But, oh yeah, thank you. So yes, you want to use the metadata API, and it's going to help Mr. Inspector to find the right calculate field and the person to email it. A quick one. The developer program, that's the tool you need to get started if you're now interested in learning more about our APIs. You get a free development site to learn and try on our APIs. And this new site, the development site, is set up with the last pre-release version of Tableau. So even you can try on new APIs that are not available yet on your Tableau server if you're not you didn't upgrade, or try API even before anyone else. The free development site is for you to try and learn about our APIs in a safe environment without breaking any server or your production server. You can connect to engineering team, and you are also invited to our sprint demos, monthly sprint demos. It's why I have to leave early today, is because just after this virtual tag, I am running the virtual sprint demos. You can join, and the only way you can receive an invitation is running the developer program. You get the product manager engineers working on this feature, demoing what's coming next on the developer platform. And as you do now, you can ask them questions as well in the chat, and you can get answers. And the passionate group of people, engineers, people, developer, is a real community, engaged community. We also have GitHub with sample codes, YouTube videos, and you can go look at our tools on the developer tools page that we just did again. So brand new design. Virtual events, we have developer user group once a quarter and sprint demos every last Wednesday of the month. So if you want to receive invitation, join the developer program. Last and not least, we run, I think it's been already 4 weeks, we run the DataDev site mini challenges. If you want to get started with our APIs, but you don't have a project or you want to have some motivations, we have 3 months of fun challenges, 18 challenges in total with 3 different levels. So you can start with easy, mid a month, you can start with moderate, can do moderate and finish with an advanced in different categories. So if you're an expert in extension API, you might want to do embedding to learn more about how to embed Tableau inside your application. Every 2 weeks, we release a new set of challenges. You have 2 weeks to solve the challenges. And after 2 weeks, we have how-to webinars by community. So developers are going to show how they build the solution. And the second week, we also run API workshops. So if you want to learn more about our APIs, join the developer program and you get an invitation to this workshop and learn how to get started with specific APIs. And of course, we like swags in the DataDev. So if you want to learn, you didn't win swag today, another chance to win swags is to participate. We have different swag for each levels. And of course, level 3 is exclusive DataDev t-shirts and beanie. If you want more information, you can go to this URL. I'm going to put it in the chat as well to learn more about the challenges. But first, you need to join the developer program. So it's developer.tableau.com. So what did you learn today? You learned that the developer platform allows you to integrate, customize, automate, and extend Tableau. You can use the developer platform to fit to your needs and your use case. And today, with this presentation and all the links shared in the presentation, you have the resources to become the developer platform evangelist in your organizations. Thank you all for listening. We are going to send the recording as well in the slide if you missed anything. Thank you. Do we have time for questions, Elena?
Yes, we have time for questions. Again, obviously, we have the chat and we have the Q&A section, but I don't know, Caroline, are we able to unmute anyone if they want to ask directly?
Yeah, if anyone wants to put up their hand or ask a question, please do so now. Otherwise, feel free to use the Q&A box and ask Gigi the question now. Don't see any coming through. Maybe we give it a minute. See what people are thinking.
Yeah, let's give it a minute. Okay, I don't know. This has been a full minute because I didn't have the stopwatch with me, but it looks like we don't have any questions at the moment. As Gigi said, we will send the slides afterwards to make this available. And if anyone has any questions, obviously you can reach out straight to her directly. Her and her colleagues at the developer program at tableau.com. Thank you, Gigi, for this presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so I shall switch back to my slides then. Okay. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, this was a session packed with content. And I don't know, for me, the main takeaway was this option to translate information actually in the dashboards. We even had, we were even considering doing something. We were actually trying to go for ideas. How can we even do this? So I definitely followed with Gigi on this. So the next session for today is 15 minutes with me. And specifically looking at Tableau desktop and looking at how we can kind of leverage the Tableau's layout containers. So let me bring Tableau desktop here. So understanding Tableau layout containers. This is what I wanted to talk to you about. As I said earlier today, this is not going to be like a Tableau's and Master sort of session. I'm not trying to push any boundaries. I just want to kind of give you a little intro and maybe help you save you some time kind of getting headaches with Tableau's layout containers. What is this about? I'm going to give you 3 tips. Kind of 3 key areas so you can try and focus on. Explain 3 tricky areas as well. Maybe try and also cover why this thing's happening and point to some resources. And I'm going to focus on techniques using content which we put in tiled, which we put in the layout containers. So I said, I know that in the data community, some people tend to prefer to float, some people prefer to use the containers, some people, of course, do both. I think we all tend to do both. And maybe we have a tendency one to another. Sometimes it's not just a matter of preference, sometimes it's a matter of maybe how we have developed standards internally in our organization. So again, today is about using the layout containers. And I'm using version 2020.1, and I'm just using data from Tableau Superstore data. So what are the basics? Kind of starting with what is a layout container. One thing I did before during this session a couple of years ago was did a bit of a research on what is a layout container, and I found Tiffany Spalding from Interworks. I've never met her, but I found her blog really interesting, really intuitive to read. And what she says is layout containers for spatial relationships between dashboard components, and that's pretty much it. Conceptually, they allow the dashboard designer to format common elements and move multiple dashboard objects at the same time. And yeah, that's really how we can benefit the most from the layout containers. So we talk about that they are for spatial relationships between components. So what are the components? We can see in these, and actually if you see here, that's why I'm actually using Tableau Desktop to use this little presentation is, here are all the available objects we can bring into Tableau in our dashboard. We can see these 2, which are the horizontal and the vertical containers. And of course, what they do is the horizontal one is going to force our content to be aligned horizontally, so kind of aligned one next to the other. Vertically, it's going to be aligned vertically, so one above the other. What else we have? We have text box, we have text, free text, images, web pages, blank, navigation, export extensions, etc. So all of these are the objects, and even the layout containers themselves are also objects. We also have these 2 buttons here at the bottom, which is tiled and floating, and by default, it's always switched to tile. And what this means is, let's give you a quick dashboard, is when you bring any object, so if you, let's say you bring a text box, you need to add, you bring a horizontal container, it automatically is tiled. If you have this button switched to floating, anytime you drag this in, it's going to be floating. So as you can see, it doesn't tile, it kind of tiles, it floats one above the other and around. So if you know you're going to be using one technique or the other for your entire dashboard, then I would definitely say switch that rather than having to constantly switch between, oh, it's floating now, I don't want it to be floating, or hey, you know, when I started with the container, I don't want it to be as a within container, I want it to be floating itself. So kind of having to avoid switching this is a really helpful option to enable. And Zita was going to talk about what are some of the useful scenarios. So I said apart from kind of moving things around together, formatting. So for example, you can see that in the slide I have quite a few text boxes, I've got an image, but all of the formatting is actually happening at the, if I keep going further up, you can see that everything is blank apart from, in terms of background color, apart from here. So I can, obviously I can do formatting, and there we go. This one actually was the rogue one element here. But you can use it for formatting. You can use it for distributing evenly. So for example, sometimes we have nice KPIs aligned to the top of our dashboard. You want them to take in space. That is really handy. Showing, hiding, and drilling down. So what are the examples here? So we said, okay, here's an example with just a bar chart. The showing and hiding in order to achieve this effect, which I think a lot of us are familiar with, and probably a lot of us are using it as well. You need to have a container. So in this case, it's vertical because things are running vertically. If you want it to be on the side, it will be a horizontal container. So this requires a container. Some of Tableau's latest release included this inbuilt button. So, we can actually switch it on and switch it off. Whilst I'm building, I have to use the Alt. I have to press Alt on my keyboard in order to activate this button. So alternatively, we can use it here in data presentation mode. So again, using this inbuilt button, you can customize the image itself, but that requires a floating container. So this is an example where you need floating, but you need to mix it up with the layout containers. And of course, it's resize proving. So sometimes we use the automatic. So I tend to use the desktop specific size. That's not what we tend to use in an organization, but you can change that to automatic. And with layout containers, you can make sure that everything collapses or expands evenly, or nothing kind of gets too squished in the bottom corner or kind of at the bottom of the page. So yeah, so these are some of the examples I find that layout containers are really, really helping me. What is the first tip I want to tell you about? Well, familiarize yourselves with the layout structure section. And where is the layout structure section? Well, it is right here on the right-hand side. If you tend to play around with formatting, you probably have seen it. If you tend to float a lot, you probably have seen it. So we have the positions, the height, the width, as well as kind of where exactly our layout containers, where exactly our objects sit on the dashboard. For objects in layout containers, you can't really specify the X and Y values because they're disabled. They kind of it's based on how where exactly the container itself starts. But for floating objects, you can kind of play around with, especially with the X and Y as well. Be very, very precise. And the padding, of course, the coloring and the border shading. But the hierarchy here is where I want to draw your attention to. And you can see how it collapses and how it expands. So you can see here all of the objects. So obviously all of the containers, you can see them as horizontal and vertical, but you can then also see each one of them where exactly in the hierarchy sits. So also the indentation is a good indication for you. Are they where exactly can they sit within the structure of the whole dashboard? So I said pay attention to the levels. Notice the top two containers. So I used to have a tiled one, but I'm going to go back to this point in a few moments. But one thing I want to show you is, again, if you keep clicking onto them, you can see which object it gets highlighted here. I've tried to use green so you can see the borders around it. You can click on them, and even if it works the other way around. So if you click on one of the objects, it gets highlighted in the container. So if you collapse this, it automatically opens so that you can actually see it where exactly it sits in the hierarchy. So if you think that, oh, I want to resize, but I don't know which one it is, which object it is, you can kind of always select it from here or from the other way around. And of course, you can also use double click. I didn't know it for quite a long time until somebody showed it to me. I said, how could I have never used this before? But when you double click on an object, then it selects the container it's in. When you select the, when you click on that object as well, then it goes a level up. So you can go all the way up to get to your top level So as I said, again, I can use that for formatting my entire dashboard, or for moving it around, or whatever you need it. So that's quite useful to remember. Tip number 2 is pay attention to the colors. So we've all seen that, when you drag something, you can see that you get these gray outlines, and you can also get these blue outlines. And blue means it's a container. Gray means it's an object. It's just, I would say, any other object on the dashboard. And also keep an eye on what happens when you drag and drop objects onto the dashboard. So for example, let's start with number 1. And here are just a couple of combinations. This is no science I have read anywhere. This is purely on some of my observations, and all the and anything you've kind of seen from the community as a way of explaining the live containers. So don't take it as a pure science, but this is the observations I've seen. So let's see case number 1. We have a shaded rectangle with no border around it. So what we get is the object will go inside a tiled container. What do I mean? It's like super wordy. There we go. We've got a blank dashboard, and I want to bring in a visualization. So let's bring the bar chart. There we go. I'm currently, I've clicked and I'm dragging. I have not released my mouse click, but what you can see, you've got a gray background, a gray rectangle with no boarding around it. And before I do that, if you go to layout, you'll see we have absolutely nothing. So my dashboard is called E3, example 3. And I go here and I drop it, right? What have we got straight away? So we have started with a tiled container, which is at the very, very top. We then have a horizontal container, which is separating our 2 sections of the container. These are the filters that are currently visible on the sheet and the visualization itself. And what you can see even is that in the horizontal container, we have the filters, because they're already 2, they've automatically brought it into a vertical container. That's how Tableau decides to align them. And I think that's something by default, we can really change it. But the visualization itself is going to another tiled container. And this is something I kind of wanted to pay attention to. Tiled is not something we had in the option here. So we know we can have here a horizontal and vertical. And these are the kind of pure rules. You either go sideways or vertically. But here we got this tiled option. And I say be very, very careful. So what I tend to do before releasing my dashboards, I kind of tend to go and remove all the tiled elements for my dashboards, because what they do is they prevent me from sizing elements in my dashboard. And I'll give you an example shortly afterwards on kind of why and how exactly they prevent this. Whilst I'm here, this is nothing to do with layout containers, but I wanted to show you is, and it took me, I think it was like maybe a few months ago when I realized that, but if you don't want to have all of these filters enabled, every time you drag your dashboards and then you keep adding those filters, you actually, in order to prevent these coming here, is by disabling them from your actual worksheet. So if I hide these cards, so my filters are still staying active here, my ship mode and order date, but I'm not seeing the legend, I'm not seeing anything else. When I come here, if I drag my bar chart, you will see that nothing comes here. And I used to get sort of frustrated. So that's something I learned not long ago. So there we go. That's a free one, nothing to do with containers. Right, what's the second example? Quickly moving on. Shaded rectangle with a dark blue border. So what does that mean is we will get an object, so the object will go inside a horizontal or vertical container. So, oh gosh, that was the wrong button. So what we do is let's clear the sheet. And what we want is let's bring in the horizontal container here. So the horizontal will go into a tile as we expected. But then when we put the object inside, we get to see these gray, big gray rectangle taking up the entire space, but we get to see this blue border around it. And actually what we're seeing, the blue border is an indicator for the actual vertical or horizontal container. So this is telling us that we have now specified layout container with vertical horizontal relationship. So this is the second case. Shaded rectangle, so we've got this slim shaded rectangle on the side, could be any side, and a dark blue border, which will mean that the object will go inside an existing container next to another one next to another object already inside it. So there we go, we have something here. And if I drag it, now we can see, there we go. So this is how it starts. We've got the blue border around it, and you have this very, very little slim area. So this is exactly what I want to highlight. If I release my mouse button, what we can see is we have the horizontal container, and we've got the two objects nested inside it. Great. What you, if I just step backwards, what we have, another example here, number 4, is shaded rectangle with light blue outline, which means that the object will go inside a tiled container. So what does that mean is, okay, here we already have our bar chart inside a horizontal container. If I drag the table, if I keep it here on the side, you can see it's a slim one. And maybe I haven't even covered all the cases, but there we go. This is how it changes from a slightly bigger shaded area with the light border outside it. I hope because your resolution is good enough to see this. So when I release my mouse click, okay, what we have got is we have got the horizontal container, but my chart did not go inside a horizontal container. It went inside a brand new tiled container inside it. So this is what I'm saying about paying attention to the colors, and obviously you're building a dashboard, so they're not going to pay too much attention to those colors all the time, but they just give you those little hints, and the more you kind of pay attention to them, the more you get used to it. And then the dark blue border with a dashed line, which means an object goes inside an existing horizontal object in a between or next to an existing object inside it. So what I'm talking about here is, okay, so we've got our bar chart, and what I can do is if I bring the map next to it, again, I'm going to drop it right here with the dark blue border. And then if I bring the table inside, there we go. This is my dashed line with the dark blue border around it. So all of my visuals, they look terrible the way they're aligned right now, but all 3 of them go into, together into this horizontal container. So this is kind of the big theory behind behind containers overall. Tip 3 is kind of add structure, the earlier the better. So adding structure from the very beginning might not often be the case. Kind of we all start by open a brand new dashboard and then saying how they want to see my my charts aligned, how they want to have the show and hide underneath, etc., etc. But the way you then go about tidying it up is I go to I'm saying what's in the dashboard section here. I click show dashboard title, which then creates, okay, I've got a tile, but then I already have a vertical container here. So it creates this vertical container. I then say, I know how I want my content to be organized. So I'm starting to make use of this already existing container. I know that I want, so what I brought actually is a horizontal one. And I want my bar chart to stay here to take up the whole space. And now I said, oh, wait, this is a horizontal container, but what I wanted is actually to put things vertically underneath it. So what you can do is if you just drag the object underneath, it will convert it into a vertical. So just because it was horizontal doesn't mean that you'll only be allowed to put things horizontally, just drag it underneath here. And this container is now turned from a horizontal to a vertical one. And there we go with the next one. One thing I'd also recommend is always use, try to put things not on the edge, but put things in the middle. So it's always it's always easier to put things in the middle. You have a lesser chance of kind of missing the container and kind of creating a tiled container accidentally on the side. Sometimes what I tend to do as well is I put blank spaces, blank placeholders. So if, let's say I've shown my title, I've created this container here. So we've got my vertical dashboard title container. I can put a white sheet, just a blank sheet. Yes, it's going to make it smaller, but it's still good enough for Tableau to kind of to put it on the side. And then I still have it here. So if I wanted something next to it, it's easy for me to put it in between them than actually trying to put it at the edge where I can miss this very, very sweet spot that is quite sensitive to your mouse movement. So this is kind of my way of spending maybe a couple of hours deciding how my content is going to interact, but then I spent 10 minutes afterwards after decided that's exactly the layout is going to be, just tidy it up and get rid of all of the tiled objects on the dashboard. So I think this is covering tip 3. Tricky Tableau area. Tricky Tableau number 1 is where is my fix width and height option. So, for example, you want to fix the height of 2 visualizations in your vertical container, but for some reason you can't see that option. So, kind of 2 reasons why this may be happening. You've either got a tiled container instead of a vertical one, obviously a horizontal one, or you might have switched on the distribute evenly option. So let's see what I'm talking about. Let's bring it around your dashboard. So again, if I bring a dashboard, let's use this dashboard. Right. So if we've got the horizontal, and then we bring a bar and we bring the map next to it. If I double click on this, I can select the container I brought in. If I have this select distribute contents evenly, we will now see that when I select this particular visual, I don't have my fixed height and fixed width. Right. But if I disable the distribute contents evenly, I can now have my fixed width option here at the bottom. So it's a bit frustrating because they're not just being grayed out and disabled, they just completely disappear. So let's just go back again. If I distribute content evenly, there we go, they just completely disappear from this section. So distribute content evenly is great, but it took me a while to realize that's the reason why I couldn't find my fixed width and fixed height options. What I mean about the tiled container is if I clear this again, so if I bring directly the visualization here, then bring the other one underneath it. So these two are now in a tiled container. And again, I don't have the fixed height option. It's just not there. The only way to resize them is by manually dragging things around. Which is okay, that's fine, but if you want to be like super precise about certain cases, then yeah, you kind of need them in. And in order to get them to make your fixed height and fixed width available is to bring in a container. So bring in a vertical container anywhere, bring this one in, bring the second one in, and now I have my fixed height. Obviously, it's a vertical container, therefore the only thing you can do is fix the height of it. The width is defined automatically by the width of the container itself. So this is tricky table number 1. Tricky table number 2 is how did I end up with an extra tiled container? One way to get this somehow to get a tiled container appearing, even if you're very comfortable, very careful with it and cautious, is by trying to align things manually. So what you can see here is if I just add let's say a text image here. It's not a text image, it's just a text. I'll leave that blank, but let's say we have text. Right. Text information. What you can do is say, hey, somehow, for some reason, I want things to be aligned. And hey, look at what Tableau is doing. It's allowing me to go to the bottom, showing where this particular object finishes. And just to let you know, just to prove to you how it works, is there we go. We've got our visualizations in a vertical container, so we can fix their height, we can fix everything. But then when I use these little arrows, you can see them beneath every object. So here, can you see now how we get this double blue line? This is kind of how they split. So if we release here and said, oh, perfect, you know, my upper visualization is aligned with the bottom of this text, which is what I wanted. Suddenly what happens is now we've got the bar chart in a vertical container and the map in another vertical container, where before they used to be together, and then we also have them together in a tiled container. So this is how you can accidentally get those tiled containers in. So these arrows are great, but they don't help with kind of keeping things neat and tidy under the hook. And there we go, now I've released it. It's no longer aligned, but I'm still keeping the two containers in. So that's how we can somehow get the containers. And the last thing is, why is the halo effect? So when Tableau introduced the padding section, which is, I just hit it over it, but when Tableau introduced padding, it was quite powerful. But then again, it kind of broke a lot of our dashboards where we've aligned things up to the pixel. So if sometimes you think, oh, okay, I'm trying to align things and they're not working, it could be because you may have extra containers involved and they may have additional padding. So by default, the first one is going with 8 and everything else is, I think, 4 and then zeros. You can, of course, adjust them manually, and if you've made an adjustment manually to align things in a certain way on your dashboard, and then you've changed the object around, the position has changed, then certain things may no longer be aligned. So that can kind of be the reason why. And we're floating rules. So this, I added this yesterday because I thought, I'm telling you about how to use layout containers and trying to help you here. I hope you find anything useful, but I'm not kind of saying that you should always be using layout tiled layout containers. There's so many good user cases where floating, you need it, you can't get away with it. So for example, I was supposed to say a few, obviously I'm writing this quite late. Just a few examples. So I demonstrated this little show and hide button over here. So as I said, this only is available with a, you have to have a floating container in order to have the information inside it. Covering your visits to stop people from interacting with them. I've used this long in the past, and I still have examples where sometimes you want maybe your KPIs and at the top, and you just want to have a sheet just to cover them, just to prevent your user from interacting with them. Just want to find a dashboard. Okay, so yeah, what you do is you tend to just, if you press Shift, Control Shift. If you press Control Shift, it automatically brings it, and then you can just position it very, very precisely so that it covers an area that you don't want users to interact with. Why would you do that? Let me see. It's entirely up to your case. Creating different graphic style content where you have images behind, you're layering elements of the dashboard. These you can't get, you really need floating there, and using templates as well. So if you want kind of section specific areas on your dashboard to visually present, to kind of try and add a new style to your dashboard. So maybe like curved edges, using curved edges around your, maybe around your charts, around your borders. I've seen people using that in the community. I haven't tried it yet, but I have seen that they tend to use floating, and that's the way to achieve it. So that's another use case when you want. So yeah, I prefer floating. I prefer layering, but floating is great as well. And just the last thing, a few resources. So this is the blog post where I took the quote at the beginning of the slide, and something that's really helpful for me is Tim McGuana's video tutorials, where I think it was about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and initially also step by step on how you can how to get comfortable with containers as well, using coloring, using putting things in it, taking them out. So I would also recommend these, and I will publish this workbook on my Tableau public profile after I tidy it up after today's demo, and you can just download it from there, or just access the links as well. So this is the end of this session. I've been talking a lot. And the next thing, the next kind of section for today is, one second, I want us to go to the community. So that's enough of me talking. Here, I hope in the next 10 minutes, we will do a little bit of an interactive session where we can exchange some ideas about the community. But before I continue, what I want to say is a big thank you to the former Tableau user group leaders. So I think I've got a couple of you guys already here on the call, but just to name them, Pontus, Bjorn, Daniel, Louise, and last but not least, Magnus, my apologies, who set up this community and kind of run the previous events. I've had a few conversations with them that gave me some great insight into the history, kind of how did you do, how they went about with the events, what worked, what didn't work. They gave me some feedback as well in terms of sessions you guys have pointed in the past that we more want to see. So I just hope that I can, take the legacy forward. In terms of me, I see myself as a facilitator rather than as a user group leader. So I'm the type of person that likes to get things done. So if you give me an idea or a suggestion on what we can do better, what type of sessions you'd like, etc., I'll just try my best to make it happen. When I started using Tableau Desktop, I did not complete any formal training at the beginning. I mean, I've done quite a few since then, but at the beginning it was all learning from my colleagues or from the local and global online communities. So that's just my way of giving back to them. And as I mentioned, back in the UK, I used to co-lead the Midlands Tableau user group. So what I will, naturally, I will draw upon some of my experience over there. We had kind of things that worked and things that didn't work, but over here we have different users, we have different abilities, we have different interests, we're using Tableau differently in our organization. So I would love to connect with you, or rather you to connect with me, because again, I can't really email you personally, and just so we can have a chat about how we can make the events more useful. Going forward, I will have to say that we'll have to be doing these sessions in English. I hope you're not kind of disappointed for those of you who are born kind of raised in Sweden. I think also it makes it a bit more inclusive. I work at anyone with a lot of colleagues from abroad, so I hope that, we can just get more people involved. I will try to have meetups, organize meetups once every couple of months. They do take a bit of time to organize, so but maybe we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm trying maybe hopefully to do another one in June. We'll see how it goes. And I'm thinking of combining the usual presentations with some show and tell sessions, some hands-on activities, maybe building things along together. But of course, some of these will happen once we resume the in-person meetings. The one thing that we found at work in the UK was having a variety of sessions of topics, so we can cover a wide range of content. We can just kind of, every time we have a different type of user, different type of event, and we don't get bored. So in the next 3 minutes, let's get to know each other, and that will be really a few minutes of me not talking that much. If you have your mobile phone ready, I would ask you to scan the QR code. But also, Caroline, would you be able just to put this link in the chat as well? And this is just a couple of questions. If you don't want to answer any of them, you can skip it. The responses are totally anonymous. What I would ask you kindly, though, is for those of you who are not listening to this presentation, but are not based in Stockholm, or you won't be able to make any of our future events, obviously I'm not saying that you don't know in the future, but if you physically, geographically won't be able, please refrain from using this call. You're more than welcome to stay for the next couple of minutes, but I'd just kind of like to hear from our community here what might be of interest. And if for any questions you'd like to choose the other option, the other answer, just please put the comment in the chat or in the chat, because you're not kind of able to this application to add to kind of to give me feedback there. Hold on, this is just me switching between screens. So there we go. Is everyone ready? I have no way of saying how many people joined, but you should be seeing a screen that's saying that the user has not started the call. And I'm starting it now. So let's find out, having a starter question just to see if you guys have managed to join successfully and get used to the tool. If you could have one of these superpowers, which one would you choose? And I'm going to try and time this for like 15 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds. I think that should be enough. There's my stopwatch. Okay, also don't worry if you missed the first question, you should be able to join the session even midway through the call. As I said, it's totally anonymous, so I won't know who said what. Right, so let's stop it here. What do we have? Well, a lot of us want to fly. I actually did not answer this question because I'm too busy managing this. But if I were to choose my superpower, probably I want to talk to animals. I love cats, so I'd love to talk to a cat if I own one. Right, let's move to the next question. Okay. Actually, I closed it. Zoom. Next. There we go. Which Tableau projects, tools, and programs do you use or participate in? So we heard about a development program. How tenders use Tableau Desktop. Just select all that apply to you. This is for me and for you guys to kind of get to know who tends to use what, and just give me a steer into what topics might be interesting for you, for everyone. So yeah, what do we have? Naturally, I'm going to leave it for another 10 or 15 seconds. Naturally, we have Tableau Desktop. Yep. Tableau Server, Tableau Public. Awesome, Tableau Public, guys. I would love to kind of see what you guys do in Tableau Public. Please follow me as well. Tableau Prep, yes, we use that as well with Daniel Wellington a little bit. Mobile, we designed for mobile as well. Tableau Online, pre-release program, great. API extensions, so that's really nice overview. Next one, let's find out, how do you see your role in the organization? So these roles are kind of the pre-selected ones from, pre-selected. These are the ones that are predefined from Tableau. If you don't know what they mean exactly by, I don't know, a data scientist, that's absolutely fine. Just by kind of think about how do you, what do you see yourself as? How do you see your role in the organization? So again, this is just an indication of what do we do. So yeah, Tableau Public, using Tableau Desktop, we tend to be dashboard designers. General user, yeah, we have those as well. Other, I won't be able to switch right now to the chat box, but I hope you guys know what other role you see yourself as in the organization. Community leader, data steward, yeah. That's fantastic. So we that's making me really excited, because what we'll do is, if we put a session about trying to get executive sponsorship and get a buy-in from them, maybe we can have a lot of people interested. And yeah, that's great. Second last question: what types of sessions would you enjoy attending? So this is just an example. Some of these, as I said, I was passed on from kind of the previous surveys that were done after the meetings with like posted notes, and some of these are things I've had in the past, the influence several years ago. So select all that apply. If you have any suggestion, again, put it in the chat box. So what would you be interested in? I'm not going to tell it. I'm not going to promise that these are the only sessions you have. I still think that it will be good to kind of cycle them, but just to see what is interesting. Right, that's good. So I have never organized actually a panel discussion Q&A section, but I think that's maybe something we can look into as well at some point in the future. Small group discussion. This competition is great, guys. Thank you so much for that feedback. And what else? The last question. What general topic? So this is kind of going on from the previous conversation, and I have a feeling dashboard design is going to be quite popular here, but that's not swaying you. But since a lot of us are using Tableau Desktop to build visualizations, maybe that's going to take the lead. Don't select it just because I'm suggesting it, but yep, tips and tricks, absolutely. Tableau Server Online, community data, yeah, great. Yep, we all want to know about all these topics. And again, if you have anything in mind, and if you don't have it like even right now, as I said, you can always drop me a message. I'll get back to you in a few seconds on how to do that. Great, thank you guys. This is the end of the call. I'm going to switch back to the presentation back from when we finish. Just the last question is, I have a few more slides, but the last question is if you're interested in doing a short presentation, and I think the best thing from the community is to learn from each other. We're not here to kind of become the next Zen masters. Even if you don't know the topic, just get in touch with me and we can have a chat, and together we can come up with something. Staying in touch, all events past and future will be on Splash. This is the platform management, and this is what I used to contact you all guys a few months ago, a month or so ago when I came, when I arrived, and just before this event. It allows us, the tech leaders, to safely contact you by the platform. I can't see your email addresses. I just have the opportunity to say, if you have subscribed for updates, I can send you this notification about the new event. So if you want to stay in touch via email, that's probably one of the best places to do. The community forum is where we'll put these presentation slides, and we'll probably put the link to the recording once it's available. I have to make a big disclaimer here. I heard yesterday, I heard that Tableau will be releasing a brand new platform where the community forum will be migrated to. I don't know anything more about it, and I don't know whether the links will have to change from this hyperlink, but once I do, I'll let you know as well. Hopefully it won't change. And you can subscribe for this area via emails. What I would encourage you to is, if you have questions, if you're looking for inspirations, for ideas, just to kind of to use it. I can see not many people have posted there before in the past. I will also be making announcements about the events. So we'll put them, obviously there'll be a splash, we'll put the links here. But maybe you can get this area a little bit more active. And I look forward to seeing kind of what it looks in the future. On Twitter, we have a Stockholm Tableau user group Twitter account. I don't know if you use Twitter, but I would strongly recommend it, because globally everybody tweets about their work on Tableau. You can both share with the community lives in Twitter. You don't have to share content. You can just, you can just follow people, follow users, and then kind of stay up to date with what they do. Follow the Zen masters, absolutely. Some of the leaders in data visualization best practices, but what you can do is you can subscribe. You can follow Stockholm Tag, and obviously we'll be sharing events for this Twitter account. And if you don't know who to follow, you can just find me, follow, and then find all the follow all the users I tend to follow. So you can do that as well. Just ignore the cats account. I follow a few called Emergency Kittens. There's one Emergency Kittens account because I like to see a cat picture every now and then on my Twitter feed. And the Stockholm Tableau user group gmail.com, you can talk in many different ways. You can just send me an email on this Gmail account. I mean, it's a shared Gmail account, but I only have access to it. So that's another way of doing it. And the last slide is connecting with me. That's my Twitter handler. Well, it's at Elena Hartland, but that's the link to it. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's also my Tableau project profile. You can find me with Elena Hartland, but that's my married name. I used to be known by Elena Christosova, so that's why the user, the URL is saying Elena.Christosova. That's still me. So that is the end of the session. I think I told you for 5 minutes extra than I had promised. Thank you very much again for joining. If we have any questions, I'm going to try and switch on the chat box. But again, Caroline, if anyone would like to raise a hand, you can probably do so, and you can unmute you. Let's have a look. Questions. I can't see anything written in the chat box.
No, I don't see either. Thank you everyone for joining.
Great. Yes, thank you guys. And I wish you, if you have tomorrow off, and Friday, I wish you a lovely long weekend. We'll send a follow-up email, we'll send you the link to the resources, and thank you again for joining this session. I look forward to meeting you in the future ones. Bye-bye.
Thank you.